It's wonderful to see so many of you here today to stand up and fight the horrendously cruel law that is breed-specific legislation. Sadly, I think we'll have to stand together many more times before we join to celebrate the repeal of BSL. A special thank you to Carol, Bell, Cobble, Sapphire, when they finally get here, and Nicole, travelling from Manchester. Carol and the Crusaders do absolutely amazing work raising awareness and showing people how wrong this law is. Carol travels to lots of places in the UK with Cobble and Sapphire, who are wonderful examples of friendly, sociable dogs who sadly have to live with the restrictions placed upon them for being labelled as tight dogs. We all know the heartbreaking stories of the beautiful dogs that have lost their lives because of how they look. These lost souls will always be safe in our hearts while they sleep, away from any more discrimination. They will be in our thoughts today, as they are every day, but today we also want to share some stories written by owners who have been affected by BSL. Some of these owners are here today to share their experiences with us, so we can understand just how much BSL affects them and the lives of their dogs. These dogs are part of the people's families, and when they are seized, the natural instinct of the owner to protect and care is denied. They are left feeling helpless and scared. We are all overjoyed when we hear that a dog that has been seized and held is returned to their loving family. Happy for them, they are now safe at home, and the memories of those painful months gradually disappear from our thoughts to be replaced by the next poor little one who has been seized. But for those dogs and owners, their new life under restriction is just beginning, and sadly this law can affect those owners and dogs for the rest of their lives. We are heartbroken when we hear that a dog will never go home, but that is nothing compared to what the poor owners suffer when their beautiful furry friend will never be by their side again. There are also many dogs and owners caught up in other parts of the Dangerous Dogs Act, which again seems to be a law that can discriminate against a dog for acting like a dog, or from reports from a vindictive neighbour, and they are also subjected to being kept apart for months on end, and some again will never return to those who love them. We have some fantastic guest speakers here today who will be sharing their knowledge and experiences with us. We also thought to try and get some more attention we can have a little bit of fun, which is why we asked you to bring a picture of the dog with you today. A little later we'll ask you all to line up holding your picture, and we will do the End BSL Mexican wave. This was a wonderful idea by Maria Danes, and maybe next year the End BSL Mexican wave will go around the world and we hold global protests. And apart from that, I'd just like to say thank you all very much for coming, and I'm going to hand over to Sam.
I've just come today to explain a little bit about what happened to me and to introduce you to my amazing dog Dubsy. I got him when he was 5 months old, 4.5 months, 5 months, and I was going through a really difficult time. I was suffering with quite bad depression, and my life wasn't really going anywhere. I never used to go out that much, and you know, I was going to the doctors, I was getting antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication and stuff like that, and I wasn't sleeping very well at night, and I thought that a good idea would be to get a bit more responsibility in my life, so I decided I was going to get a dog, and I got Dubsy from a family that couldn't afford to keep him anymore, and I got him for free, and when I met him I just fell in love with him straight away. So I got him chipped, I got him all of his jabs at the RSPCA hospital, and did everything that I thought a responsible dog owner should do. And whenever I walked him, he was always on the lead or on his harness, which has a little lead attached, and he changed my life completely. I get up early every morning, we go out and we play, and he goes out at least 3 times a day, and basically I haven't got time to be depressed now, I haven't got time to be sad or be ill. I have to get on with it, and he gets on with it. He gets up every day, he's there wagging his tail, ready to go, so why shouldn't I be? So that's a bit about me and my dog. one day this year, earlier on this year, actually in July, I believe it was, or August. No, it was July, sorry, late July. I was due to go out with him to the park, but hadn't got ready yet, so I thought, oh, I'll just take him downstairs to my communal gardens. I live on a council estate, and I walked in the communal gardens with him for a bit, and then he looked like he wanted to go to the loo, so I let go of his harness, and he literally went to the loo about 2 meters in front of me, and while I was picking up his mess, he trotted around this big bush that we have in our communal gardens, and he was just having a sniff and a look about like he always does. Unfortunately, there was a police operation going on at the time, and they were there to arrest a violent criminal. So there's this one police officer standing behind a bush waiting for this criminal guy to jump out, and you know, he was going to jump on him. So this police officer was all charged up and ready to go, and my dog was just having a little sniff around, and he came face to face with this policeman, and he was about 12 to 15 feet away from this policeman, and the policeman decided to stand there and stare at my dog. So my dog basically barked at him a little bit, and the policeman decided it was time to draw out his telescopic baton. So he drew out his baton like this, and then held it like this. Now, when I play with my dog, I get tennis balls or sticks, and I throw them like that. So he obviously must have thought that the policeman was playing. So he carried on barking at him, and he kept his distance from the policeman of 12 feet away. The time between me picking up his mess and putting it in the bin, the time between that moment and me getting him back under control was 3 to 4 seconds. That I didn't have him, literally didn't have hold of him, and he was barking at a policeman for this time. That was deemed as him being dangerously out of control. Okay, and he was seized off of me by the police, and I was arrested at that time for those things happening. So in a period of 3 seconds, my dog barking at him and not being in my hand, that was classed as dangerously out of control. And my dog was seized, and I didn't see him for 4 months, and I didn't hear any news about how he was. I didn't know how he was being looked after or anything, so that was terrible. All the policeman had to do, because when I was arrested, I wasn't made aware that he legally, and this is very important, your dog legally has to have a collar and a tag with your name and address, or at least with your address and a phone number on it. If your dog does not have that, you are breaking the law, and they can take your dog off of you. It's important that everyone knows that. That's what I fell foul of, and that's why they took my dog away. While they had him, they decided to say that he was of pit bull type. He's a Staffy cross with a mongrel, and we were lucky enough to have I think the country's leading dog expert. His name is Dr. Roger Mugford, and we were lucky to have him on side. He examined my dog and proved in court that he was not a pit bull type, and proved in court that he was not a dangerous dog. And I was very, very lucky, because he was found not guilty on both counts. Sorry. What I want to come from this is I want people to be made aware of what the law is, and the power that the police have, and the fact that you can't always trust the police. Sometimes when they seize dogs off of their owners, they get them to sign them over, and then they've got the power to destroy that dog at their own leisure. They can decide to destroy the dog straight away if they want to, once you sign it over. So never sign over your dog. Always have your dog with a collar and a tag on, and always, look out for these kind of incidents, because the more people that know what the law is, the more people we can get to hang on to their dogs, because no one wants to go through what I went through. It was horrible. So everyone's got to spread the word. It's really important, okay? Because I was lucky. Not everyone is lucky. Okay. So that's all I've got to say.
I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Sam for standing up and sharing your story.
I just want to say, I was very lucky. The reason I've got upset is because not everyone's as lucky as me. So I just want everyone to spread the word.
This is Joe Moffat and Casper. 13th of May 2013 started like any other day, but it turned out to be our worst nightmare. It was a normal Monday morning and my partner had gone off to work and I decided to have a line with my fur baby Casper. After a few cuddles and a doze, I got washed, dressed and ready for the day and decided to nip out for a while. The normal things we do every day. As I was turning the corner from our road, I noticed the police turning into it. I thought nothing of it and continued on my way. A few minutes later, a police car pulled up alongside me and an officer got out and informed me I was under arrest under Section 1 of the DDA, keeping a banned breed with the English fight. At first I didn't understand. I honestly thought they were joking. I was so confused. The officer explained they needed the keys to my house to remove the animal. Not Casper, but the animal as they described my best friend. I thought I was being arrested because as a kid I'd got into trouble and had a criminal record, but I grew up and hadn't been in any trouble since I was 14. This was all wrong. I was interviewed about Casper and bailed, and then the reality started to kick in. They'd taken our baby boy, our precious fur kid, and the future looked bleak. We believed someone made an anonymous complaint to say Casper was a pit bull. We couldn't understand why someone would risk a perfectly friendly dog's life to make such a nasty complaint. Casper is a Staffy Cross Lab and has been the most loyal, friendly and loving dog ever. He has never put a paw wrong, and to target him based on looks was just so wrong. I cried myself to sleep every night wondering if I would ever see those big brown eyes ever again. I appeared in court 2 weeks later. By then the charges had been changed as Casper had been neutered, owning a dangerous dog of type. I pleaded not guilty because I did not believe my Casper looked anything like a pit bull, which I didn't realise there was a difference between pit bull breed and a pit type. Court was adjourned then for 2 weeks for the experts to assess my darling boy, and the wait was awful. Along the way we were constantly in touch with Mel Rushmore from Deed Not Breed, and she was brilliant. We set up a Facebook group and people from all over the world gave us so much support. It was overwhelming, but Casper was still in kennels. My partner and I missed him so much. I didn't move his toys or his food bowls because I didn't want to think of life without our precious fur kid. This also put a massive strain on our relationship. I blamed myself and I felt like I should have done more to protect him from this cruel law. DMB were in contact with us most days, letting us know Casper was okay. The hardest thing was not seeing him. We found out Casper was being measured by the DLO, and it was confirmed he conformed to pit bull type. I remember crying and thinking, this is it. Casper won't live now, he's lost his right to live. A lot of people were giving us advice and telling us the worst wouldn't happen and Casper would pass his temperament tests and be home. But it never stopped us thinking the worst, and the next hearing was looming in a few days. Court day arrived and I was a bag of nerves, praying I would see our baby soon and this would all be over. I spoke to the solicitor who informed us the CPS did not have the report from the DLO and it would be another fortnight before we would be back. I knew the report had been done and I knew it had been faxed, but CPS claimed they hadn't got it. Somewhere along the way someone had dropped the ball. I felt like it didn't matter to them. Me, Casper and my partner were just another case to them. The pain and heart we were all going through meant nothing. We left court very downhearted and feeling that this nightmare was never going to end. DMB had spoken to the DLO to say the CPS hadn't received their report and she was livid. On her own time, this very special lady contacted CPS to say Casper does not belong in kennels and he should be home with his family as he poses no risk. At this time we had no knowledge of what this lady had done for us and were still assuming the worst. Suddenly my phone rang and it was my solicitor saying CPS are withdrawing the destruction order and agreeing with Casper being exempt. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. I rang my partner and she came home and we were literally jumping around like little kids. We'd never gone through so many emotional highs and lows in our lives. We turned up at court excited but still nervous. We knew it was still up to the magistrates to agree with CPS. My solicitor told the court we were responsible dog owners and we presented the court with vet reports and letters from friends and family who knew Casper to say he was a great dog and us as owners. The DLO report showed Casper passed with flying colours. The magistrates retired to consider their verdict and what felt like 5 hours passed. It was literally 5 minutes. I stood up on very shaky legs quivering and the magistrate in charge was very nice and agreed to exempt Casper. I just cried and said thank you. I thanked them for punishing me for a crime I didn't know I had committed. I was given a fine and in total it was £185. I didn't care, it was over and my baby boy was coming home. We had already registered Casper with Dogs Trust and had to ring DEFRA to register with them. Once this was complete, we had to pay for the tattoo and his taxi home, which we paid straight away. On the 7th of June 2013, our prince had his tattoo and we got a phone call saying he was ready to come home. We met the lady who looked after him on Massillon car park and we were reunited with him. That's Joe's story. This is from Nick Carston and George. I was at home in my flat after returning from house sitting my sisters for 2 weeks when I heard a terrible noise. It was all I could hear. It was the sound of a dog crying in pain. From my window I could see police and RSPCA everywhere. They'd been called out to attend to a dog with a broken leg, living with a drug addict. Having a dog of my own, I wanted to comfort this dog with treats, but this only drew the police attention to me. I was asked if I had a dog and the police were more than insistent on seeing him. I obliged and he was checked over by 2 separate people. I wanted to know if everything was okay and was reassured by both the police and RSPCA that everything was fine, so I continued to go about my day and go shopping. As I walked past them all, no one said a word. The very first thing I noticed when I returned was George was not in his usual spot by the door, so of course he must be on my bed. He was not on my bed. In a panic I started looking around my flat and then I noticed it, a police warrant on my TV stand. Without any given warning, they had used a locksmith and entered my home whilst I was completely unaware and unable to defend him or say goodbye to him. They had seized my gorgeous George. For the longest 7 weeks he was gone. I was so happy to get him back and I could tell he was so happy to see me, but he was so skinny I could tell he had been living under some stress. George is back to his normal lively self now, but his life has changed. No longer able to run off lead, it can be a challenge to give him the right amount of stimulation.
Dog owner Guinness Walker's story. Guinness Walker was left shocked and upset after collecting their pet dog Cody from the North London police station last week. Cody was returned after being seized from her son as a pit bull type on the 26th of August under the Dangerous Dogs Act legislation. West London Magistrates Court ordered Cody be registered and exempted as the law allows for dogs who are responsibly owned and deemed not of any danger to the public. Glynis Walker and family were relieved the pet dog Cody would be allowed to live and excited to collect him from the police station car park last Thursday. However, feelings of joy and jubilation soon disappeared on the big day. Glynis explained, the van doors opened and there was this awful smell. The van and Cody smelled of the creature and there was Cody trembling. His legs kept shaking and he had cuts on his nose. He looked so sad I hardly recognised him. Glynis's 22-year-old son was in tears and said, I would rather have Cody put down than to suffer like this. Cody was taken home and his owner Glynis telephoned the Endangered Dog Defence and Rescue for advice. Upon further examination, it was also noticed that Cody's scrotum was red, raw, sore. He had stitches in being neutered, and the skin covering 3 of his huge tattooed numbers had torn. Glynis said, what you can't see from the photos is the smell. We had to bathe him twice before I removed it. I haven't received any information about the stitches They look tight and sore. The inside of his ears are black with dirt. The pads on his feet are yellow. He has scrapes on the top of his head. I don't know if he needs antibiotics. We are seeking medical advice from our own vet now. My grandson saw him and just cried. He's lost his spirit and just sits there with his head low. I can't thank EDDR enough for their understanding and ongoing support. They have also provided a behaviourist to help Cody. Cody is just 18 months old in age and has lived happily with his family from the age of 8 weeks. He had never been in trouble and had been in kennels since August. A brief time compared to some dogs, but had the index of exempted dogs be open for owner-led registration, then he wouldn't have needed to withdraw at any time at all away from home. The update. His family made complaints to the IPCC, Independent Police Complaints Commission, and the RSPCA. The good news is that after a long struggle, Cody has adjusted back into his home life and physically recovered and is on